Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for being with us today. We're going to talk to a guy who's written a book, and at face value, you might think that there's a lot of politics involved in this book, but not so much because of the research that went into it and the facts behind it. The book is called The Liberal Record: How Liberals Changed the World. And we talked about this last time. We're going to go a little bit deeper into some of the issues that are involving us nowadays and more. And Marcelo Brazzi is back with us. Welcome. How are you doing today?
Hi, Steve. Nice to talk to you again.
Yeah, good to have you back here. And when we last talked, we talked about the years that you spent researching all the facts, all the figures, even with graphs and more inside this book to illustrate what liberals have done. And by the way, we don't dig deep into politics here, but what liberals have done to, I guess, change the world. And these are all based on facts, and you gave some last time.
Yeah, they. I didn't think there was any need to write a book or articles. I write articles too, but about stuff that is you can turn on your 6 o'clock news and hear the same old stuff over and over,
Right.
or from political people. They just give you the same old stuff. I felt as a writer, it's my responsibility to dig deeper into the history and the facts and a lot of other stuff. The whole book is full of stuff like that. In fact, I just wanted to mention that there's nothing in the book that you're going to find on the 6 o'clock news or on the media or the radio or magazines. It's all things that are. It's hard to explain that unless we go into some of that stuff.
Sure.
But let me just spend 2 minutes mentioning my background so people get a little bit of an idea. I grew up in the Midwest, have a master's degree in engineering. I worked as an Apollo spacecraft engineer. Without me, we wouldn't have got to the moon. I'm just kidding. But no, I did. I worked on this Apollo program, and then I've traveled a lot in the world. Done a lot of things. Like one thing that's kind of noteworthy. I've gone up Mount Everest and Mount Kilimanjaro, and anyway, I'm not going to go into all my whole history.
We might get back to that later, but yeah, I love you giving your background. And when we talk about the masters and the engineering connection, for me, right away, that speaks about your very detail-oriented and fact-driven, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if it's me or engineers in general, but people in science, we really go by the facts. I mean, if something turns out different, we run experiments and things. If the experiment doesn't go the way we thought it was going to go,
Sure.
then we change the thesis. We say, well, look, that didn't work, so we got to do something else. So that's the same thing, with pretty much any area. And like I said, in writing this book, I really, really wanted to stick to the facts, avoiding all kinds of opinions and political opinions and all that. And the book has like 30 graphs and tables in it, which are hard data supporting all the various information that's included in there. Let me step back and just go over where we are today in the history. For many, many years, politics was an area of compromise and cooperation. And, both parties, people had their ideas, but we all got along. I remember growing up, we didn't have all this conflict and animosity and all that stuff we have today. Anyway, I felt I had to set the record straight and explain what's happening. For one thing that's in the book, I'm not going to go into it here, but on August 4th, 1987, the whole world changed. And, I could talk about that, but I don't want to go into that now. But at that point, this whole atmosphere has changed. The big problem was with the definitions of who is a liberal, who is a conservative. And that went under tremendous pressure by some people to change the definitions. And a lot of people today have a very false idea of the word liberal. Liberal is a word that's you can't just change it because you don't like it. But again, like I said, this book it's just full of stuff that you're not going to see on TV, and it's covered. Let me just touch real briefly. Well, one other thing, yeah, the reviews, because of what we're talking about, the information that's unique and fact-based, and that is one of the reasons, maybe the big reason, why the book got so many good reviews. I'll just read a couple quick ones. I'm not going to read all the reviews. There's a lot of them, but just so you know that I'm not just making this up, There's a John Kelly, Detroit Free Press. He wrote, "This book is essential reading." He's a good reviewer. A guy named Grady Harp, he's a famous reviewer. He wrote, "A brilliant book, very, very highly recommended." So just so that, people know, this is not just a paperback that's, full of baloney. It's
Right. And these are all genuine, real reviews, people that read books on a regular basis. And by the way, theliberalrecord.com is the website. Why don't we center on your thoughts on some issues today? For example, healthcare. People say it's a broken system. We probably could do an entire podcast on thoughts about the healthcare system, but when connected to liberals, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have a couple of sections in the book about healthcare. It is I consider it a very important issue that doesn't get enough attention. First of all, let me say that for various reasons, Republicans have opposed all proposals for healthcare. Pretty much every country in the world has universal healthcare. The United States is maybe the only one that does. And every time it's been brought up in Congress, the Republicans have opposed it every time. It's one of the reasons they tell people is, oh, well, if you got government health care, it's you're not going to get the service. It's very ineffective. It's inefficient. It's not good. Well, that's all a lot of baloney, because I've done the research. And if you go look at what the other countries feel about their health care, it's amazing. Other countries are very, very satisfied with their health care. I've traveled to other countries and I've seen their health care, and they've traveled here and seen our health care. And the other countries are doing very well in healthcare. One of the things they're doing well is the cost of healthcare. They don't have a profit motivation like we do. Everything in our healthcare, insurance, hospitals, medication, everything, it's all got a big a cap on it for profits.
And you know what? I'm not here to agree, just to agree. And I don't do politics, but I'm on your page. I think it's coming from somebody who has to buy their own health care. Why do I have to go through my state? Why are they controlling it? Why can't I shop like I shop for anything? Why is it all just controlled back to the state? Just saying. That's my opinion. You can let it go.
Well, yeah, I have a couple comments on that. Well, first of all, the Republicans always opposed all health care, and then finally, when Democrats got control of the Congress, they were able to pass Obamacare. So Obamacare was been around for a few years, and then the Republicans got control, and they ran on the platform that they were going to replace Obamacare. Okay, so there were a lot of negotiations going on back and forth on how they're going to replace Obamacare. And one of the big issues that came up was the proposal of having a public option. A public option would be an insurance policy you could get through the government, but you could still get your private one if you wanted. So you had a choice. You could either do the public option or have your own private insurance. Well, Republicans oppose that. Now, you would think that traditionally why Republicans oppose something like that, they would always say, well, that's a government program. Governments are inefficient. Governments are, a lot of bureaucracy, and it'd be a terrible program, all that stuff. No, that's not what they were. That was not their objection. And believe it or not, and they said this in public. Well, they didn't say too much in public, but it came out. Their objection to the public option, believe it or not, was that it would be too efficient. It'd be too cost effective. In other words, they were upset that with the public option, I'm serious, they were upset that if we had a public option, it would be so cheap and so effective and so, that the other, the regular private insurance companies wouldn't be able to compete with them. So they fought that vigorously. They did not want an efficient, nonprofit operation to compete with. I mean, that just gives you an idea of what's happening. And let me give you another thing, almost along the same lines. When Medicare was being proposed, Republicans, I think, were in the House, and they gave assignment to a guy named Bill Towson. He's from New Orleans, I think, from Towson, Tauzin. He was put in charge of writing up the Medicare bill, how with the wording and stuff like that. Well, he didn't like doing that, so he got a hold of the drug companies, and he had the drug companies do it for him. What? That's like
sounds like we have a little conflict going on there.
Yeah, right. That's like getting the foxes to watch the hen house,
Right.
No, that's exactly what happened. The drug companies actually wrote the Medicare drug bill. And of course, if you're in some business and you have to write up some, regulations or whatever, you're going to make them so that you're going to make more money, right? So what they did, and again, this is a type of thing very few people are aware of, and it's, one of the things I've dug up in my research is that the drug companies put together the regulation that there was no negotiation, no free market, no competition in drug prices. In other words, a drug company would say this is what, $100 or whatever. You couldn't say, well, we're going to get a big order, we're going to make it $57. No, you just have to pay whatever the drug companies want. That's it. There's no negotiation, no free market, nothing like that. Again, this is in conflict with what Republicans generally are for. They always say, oh, well, we have free markets and that's going to bring out the best and everything, But again, that's not the way it works. In general, the health industry in America is not competitive. In other words, the free market, I believe in a free market and capitalist. I consider myself a capitalist. I've got a lot of investments and stuff. So I'm not against capitalism, but the health market, think about it, it really is not a competitive market. If your doctor says, hey, Steve, I want you to go over to a Good Luck Hospital and get a brain transplant or whatever, you can't shop around. You can't say, oh, well, let me go, shop on the internet and see if I can find a better hospital or anything. You just go wherever you're told to go and they charge you whatever they charge you.
Yep.
And in the process of charging you, most people, again, this is another thing people aren't aware of. They have, because there's so many insurance companies and so many different programs, there is a tremendous overhead in what I forget the word for it, but it's basically in English, it's the coding for medical procedures. They have a coding,
yep.
A big coding book, they have a name for it. And every insurance company, you got to deal with all the different forms and procedures and everything. And to become an expert or just a practitioner in using all these codes, believe it or not, I was amazed at this. You have to go to school for like 6 months to a year. to learn all the ins and outs and all the stuff about how to use this thing and everything, what all the codes are, how they work and everything like that. It's a big, big, big overhead that other countries don't have stuff like that. There was somebody, I think in the Department of Bureau of Budget or something like that. And he said, if we got rid of this overhead, just the coding overhead, the handling of these people, because they have businesses, they have big businesses set up just to do that, nothing else.
Oh yeah.
They he said that if we got rid of that, we could provide health care for all the people in America who don't have insurance. And in other words, you could pay for all the insurance for uninsured people by just getting rid of that amount of overhead. Another big overhead, I guess we take this for granted, but the executives for the insurance companies and the hospitals, you'd be surprised that these guys get $30 million a year. Some 10 million, some 20, whatever, it changes. But if you ask me, I don't, this is my opinion. My opinion is that there isn't anything anybody can do that's worth $1 million. I mean, what are they, are they going to invent some new magic medicine or come up with some, great policy or what? No, I've been in the industry and I know how the industry works. I mean, you get meetings and you go and do something and you file reports and you go on conferences and it's just, it's not a big deal, and yet.
I agree.
Yeah.
Like, why do these people make these big salaries? Yes, there's a lot of responsibility, but it doesn't need to be this amount. It can be this amount and
Exactly.
that job done. And same thing with the healthcare system. I'm in New York State, but I hear it's the same in Florida and other states where you have to go through the state marketplace to get your insurance if you're buying insurance on your own. And in doing so, you can only buy what they tell you we have available. What? So it's almost as they're going like this. Nope, you can't have anything else. You can't look over here. You can't go. If you're an individual, it's very very one-sided. It's different if you're a business, then you can shop around, but you can also use the marketplace as well if you want.
One of the justifications for these $20 million salaries, the justification is, well, we want to get the most qualified people, the best qualified people. Well, I guarantee you there are thousands of very, very, very qualified people, highly educated, highly experienced, highly motivated, and you could hire them for $10 million. You could hire them for $5 million and they would do an excellent job. In fact, lots of these companies with these CEOs are making millions and millions of dollars. Their stock market goes down and they get a bonus.
Right. Right. Yeah. Pain and suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to your point, because I know somebody that's looking for a job as a medical biller with all the codes and everything, you can always pretty much find a job because they're in such need. And you are right. There are so many codes. And even if it's one code, like 123 ABC for one procedure, there are like 30 other codes because there's slight nuances, whether a certain, suture was used with this, that, the other. It just adds to confusion and just adds to the dollars.
Yeah. And this is the part, all these things we're talking about here, the coding, the Medicare drug prices, the salaries, all that overhead and all that stuff. These are the things people don't know about. I mean, you ask the average person, I tell the average person about these coders or about the $1 million salaries, and they say, "Oh, I didn't know that." Why I didn't know that was that. There's all kinds of stuff like this that the general public is not aware of. Yeah. And that was like I said before, it's kind of was my main motivation for writing this book, to go into a lot of stuff that is not common everyday knowledge. One issue that was raised is that Well, so you got a lot of statistics and tables and graphs, but how do you know that data is good? How do you know that how it was collected from, there was a valid collection, or how do you know it wasn't biased, or all that kind of stuff? Well, um, first, let me just mention a couple of sources. One of my sources was the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and that is a big government operation, and they provide business with all kinds of information, statistics, and everything. And they don't make stuff up. I mean, that's their whole job, to provide information and statistics about the economy and labor and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Another one is the econometrics that I have and use in the book to talk about how the economy has always done better under Democrats. Again, people might challenge that. And I say, you can find econometrics data all over the internet. I mean, whether it's GDP or profits or employment or unemployment, any of that stuff, it's common knowledge statistics that there's probably hundreds of websites and industry sites, and that gives you all that information. So it's not just some guy in the backyard making up numbers. Another one is the votes. When people vote on these issues, and I actually quote the voting records in the book about certain issues, like issues like Social Security and other such issues. So these are all valid references. I mean, it's not just some guy making up stuff.
And same thing we said last time we spoke about the voting statistics. These are companies that are paid a lot of money, and they have to be accurate. I've worked with research companies before on the media side, and it was my job to make sure I picked the right companies and went through, exposed their ways, and you know what? It was accurate. These companies have a lot at stake.
That's it. I mean, that's what people don't realize, that these polling companies have a lot at stake. They don't understand that. Yeah. And again, I refer to that. But I mean, just think about it. If you're in some business, whatever business that is, I don't know if you're making widgets or whatever, if you don't do a good job at it, a reasonable, a good product at a good price, you won't be around very long. And the polling statistics are a product of the polling companies. And if their statistics are bad or whatever, they're not going to be around much longer. And
especially if somebody, maybe like you, exposes the fact that there was a flaw. All it takes is one. And right away, that company's reputation is tarnished. We have a couple of minutes left. We have instant feedback. I don't know if you want to answer this question, because we're trying to stay away from politics in general, but we have Greg in Searsport, Maine, checking in. Instant feedback, steve@gmail.com if you want to reach us. He says, as a liberal, what are your thoughts about the current situation involving the Trump indictment?
I have a couple mixed feelings about that. On one hand, I think it's not going to amount to a hill of beans. I mean, it's only, I can't get excited about it, put it that way. I mean, but you have to look at the big picture, and I just was writing about that this morning. He is facing a whole raft of indictments and challenges, and I mean, it's like there's a long list. Even the one that's on the table today has 30 30 items that are on the list, and they all so I think I don't think this is a big deal in the final analysis, but we have to. I think maybe they're going too far, but at the same time, we have to decide as a country or whatever, are we going to let celebrities not have to be accountable just because of their title or their name or whatever? Or are we going to treat everybody the same? And I really like to see all these celebrities and anybody, when they do stuff, they should be held accountable. Even though I'm not, I'm not too excited about this particular. It's a kind of a small issue as far as I'm concerned.
What
But
I'm getting from you, Marcello, is that you don't care who it is. It could be Tom Cruise, it could be whoever. If there is something there potentially floating out there, it needs to be exposed. Doesn't matter your celebrity status, your political status, doesn't matter.
yeah, no, I consider myself an independent. I'm registered as an independent, and I have voted for Republicans in the past. I voted for whoever I thought had was most qualified and was most honest. I treasure honesty very much. So I'm not here to beat any special drum or anything. My whole goal in doing the writing and everything is just to make sure, or try to make sure people are fully informed on a lot of this stuff that we've been talking about, the overhead with healthcare. I had a couple comments on guns, but I don't know if we have enough time.
We actually don't. We're at that time. I wanted to hear your opinion on that, as a matter of fact.
There's some interesting items there.
Maybe next time when we get together. The book can be found at theliberalrecord.com, and it's all about the liberal movement and what it's done to change the world. And you've done the research. All the facts are in there. The reviews are fantastic. At the very least, I would say go to the website. If anybody's interested, there's a lot of information there. You even share some of the contents in the book, and you can see the reviews as well. Marcelo, thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Very nice talking to you.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.